Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. CFL Central here. CFL content for the fans, by the fans. And, well, the Toronto Argonauts are going to be your 2022 Grey Cup champions. Man, as a Bomber fan, it hurts, but as what is. So I decided to really release this one a little bit later, as I did my Bombers coverage of that on the No One Hockey podcast. Make sure to check that out. More from a Bomber fan perspective. But I wanted to kind of take a little bit of time, let the emotions out, let it breeze, as I was upset. You know, I was really disappointed. You know, I wasn't crying. You know, I wasn't crying my eyes out like some people, but I was upset. Obviously, I wanted my team to win. I was disappointed. But you know what? All in all, the Bombers put up a good showing, and you know what? Toronto really earned this. Toronto put in 110% this game, and they exceeded all expectations, and they were absolutely right in when, you know, guys like Ouellette and Mwamba are talking with the media, saying that, you know, the media told us that we didn't have a chance in this game. You know, they're 100% right on that. As a Bomber fan, everywhere, like, I remember, and this is kind of the same thing that happened with BC. I feel bad for the Lions, kind of, in the sense of that TSN kind of just wrote them off, like to the extent of which they're talking during the Eastern semifinal to see who will move on and, you know, who could possibly come out of the East. And they mentioned, like, you know, it'll be interesting to see who plays Winnipeg this year from the East. And it's like, okay, well, you know, you're assuming that they beat the Lions here. So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I understand why they feel that way, but as their job, you know, working in media, they have to be unbiased and, you know, give every team their fair shot. And, you know, the Toronto Argonauts didn't exactly get that from them. So I think that probably all the more fueled them for this game. And wow, what a game this was. You know, this will go down as a Grey Cup classic. It'll suck for me because I'll hear about it and I'll just remember how we were just 1 point away. We missed a kick. We messed other things up. And oh my goodness, we had 2 blocked field goal attempts all year in the CFL. And we got 2 in the last 2 minutes of this game. It was exciting. This was a nail biter of a game. And both teams played really well. It's funny, Zach Collaros played fine. He didn't play up to the Collaros standard that I set, but then again, that Collaros standard is a very high bar. But, you know, he plays fine here, and the Bombers have been kind of tiptoeing on this issue with their kicker, Mark Leggio, for a while. Last year, they decided he wasn't good enough. They went with Castillo. It was the right choice. This year, Leggio was performing better for the most part. You know, he'd miss a little kick here and there, but, you know, it looked like they were going to go with that. And they decided to stick with it, and, you know, it did burn them a bit. Now, I want to make sure this is 100% clear. I am by no way blaming the entire loss on the kicker like a lot of people out there. I'm very much, you win as a team, you lose as a team. And, you know, I think the Bombers would be smart to look for a new kicker. I think actually one of the places they could look for that new kicker is a lot of the guys they drafted. They drafted at least 2 kickers this past year. With kickers, normally you're able to bring them in a little bit early, as it just doesn't take as long in them to really get used to it. As kickers generally don't have as vast improvements and declines in talent as your standard player when it comes to their accuracy in their kicks. Obviously, it'll get better and worse, but not to the same degree as a player will go from playing third string to first string. So, you know, it is what it is there. Dalton Schoen had another great night, like he always does. Brady Oliveira was very, very solid for the Bombers. He really was able to charge that running game. You know, Andrew Harris was in. He played well, but I actually think he gets overshadowed by Ouellette here. Ouellette, in my opinion, was the best running back for the Toronto Argonauts in this game, and he really performed today. He caused problems for the Bombers. And, you know, the interesting thing I will say about this game, one area where Winnipeg was struggling a little bit was their offensive line. Simply that they just couldn't, like, Collaros, you know, this is kind of where my prediction was a little bit accurate about my concerns here for Collaros. You know, Collaros, he had that thing going on with his foot. Now, I don't actually know if that technically hindered his play, but whether it hindered his play or not, it definitely changed the way that Zach was processing things. And he really was not able to, he had a few instances where he could scramble really well, but he wasn't able to really escape that pocket when it started to collapse. And so I think this was a game where the pocket needed to be better. And it just wasn't quite up to par as Zach got sacked, I think, at least 5 times. And this happened a lot to Bethel Thompson, too. And it became a problem. They'd put in Chad Kelly after Bethel Thompson tweaks his thumb, and a smart decision by the Toronto Argonauts to keep Chad Kelly in because he starts performing well. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's if you get it, like, and this is the same thing that the Bombers did with Drew Brown in the very first game of the season, and I was very, very happy with O'Shea with his decision for that. And what happened was there was an instance where Collaros had to be taken out, not because he was actually injured, but because he was a little slow getting up. However, the ref called it as an injury timeout. Collaros has to be out for 3 plays. Drew Brown comes in, does the 3 plays, but gets 3 consecutive first downs, so they could decide to just keep going with it. Because they're having success with that backup quarterback, it makes sense to continue with it. You know, Toronto makes the smart decision by just not messing with success. And the Argonauts really played a pretty complete game from start to finish. And I feel like that's really what was all the difference here, was that the Argos, most games, whenever people play against the Bombers and are able to do well against the Bombers, they're able to keep the Bombers at bay. They can put up some points, but at one point or another, there's a crack in the door that the Bombers get in and they just blow the whole thing open. And that's what the Bombers have relied on. I mean, how many games have you seen this season where the Bombers would come back and win in the 4th quarter? It happened a lot, especially near the start of the season before they played BC for the first time when they were on their undefeated streak. They just simply just kept playing that style of football. And, you know, it's one of those things where the Argonauts, they did the exact same thing, except they never gave that big opening for the Bombers to really blow stuff up. And so they just played a very, very complete game. And, you know, I feel like that made all of the difference for Toronto. But by no means the Bombers didn't go down either. You know, you had a guy like Nick Hallett out of nowhere with an unbelievable block of the kick to really give life, that last bit of life into the Bombers, and really give the Bombers another shot at getting it done. Now, I know what a lot of people are saying. There's a lot of people saying that Mark Leggio's kick, even though it was blocked, that it wouldn't have gone in. And that could be true. But I feel like people are really, really not taking a factor in wind. The Bombers decided to defer so that way they could go with the wind in the 4th quarter. With the way the wind was blowing around, that kick might have gone in. You know, it's hard to tell when you have such when a kick gets blocked, you have such a small sample size to see of whether that would have went in or not. But I don't think it's fair to a guy like Leggio to just write it off and say that wouldn't have gone in. I don't think that's fair to him. I don't agree with that. I disagree with that. But overall, this was a great Grey Cup game, even if it was disappointing for me, as I was really hoping for that three-peat. I was hoping for my 3rd one of these. Oh, these things are so nice. You know, they're so nice. I wanted another one. Toronto fans, you guys will get those, though, so congratulations. I hope you guys enjoy those. But, you know, one thing I will say from the Bomber fan perspective, my opinion, the dynasty is not denied, is not dead, is simply delayed. So, you know, I think both of these teams have a very, very bright future. I think this was very important for the Toronto Argonauts, as they still, attendance is still an issue in Toronto, and, you know, they really need to get some fans in the building, and I would like to hope that winning the Grey Cup would be enough to do it. Now, MLSE needs to do something with that. One of the smart things the Bombers did was they had them show up to Jets games with it. And, you know, all the Jets fans would be like, oh, you know, big trophy in there, yeah, you know. And a lot of those fans do go to Bombers games, as Bomber attendance is, you know, near top of the league, up with Saskatchewan in that regard. But for the fans that, just watched hockey in Winnipeg, who had not really taken much of an interest into the Bombers, just because, hockey is absolutely the number one sport here in Canada, it was an interesting thing for them to be exposed to, and especially to see a team have success. When a team is doing well, you're more inclined to go through their games. It's simple. It's one of the reasons why a franchise like the Arizona Coyotes in hockey have had a bit of trouble, besides the fact that they're in a desert, is that the team has not been very good. People don't want to spend $60 to watch their favorite team get their ass kicked. That's how it is. And I would hope to see that the Toronto Argonauts are really able to kind of change that culture in the city of Toronto and get some people out to their games. As at the end of the day, I want all franchises in the CFL to be doing well. And I want the Schooners to join eventually. And I just want the CFL to prosper as a whole. I think this was a great Grey Cup game. Let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section down below. 24-23 for the Toronto Argonauts over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The Toronto Argonauts are the 2022 Grey Cup champions, and we're going to have some off-season content coming along. If you guys have any ideas, possible player interviews, anything, I would love to hear it. Or just any other ideas for the channel. I always love hearing your guys' feedback. So until next time, I'll see you guys later.